Today, a new report on Islamism and the Muslim Brotherhood in Europe is being released by the European Conservatives and Reformists group in the European Parliament. According to the authors of the report, there is no central or visible organization named Muslim Brotherhood in Europe, but that does not mean that such a network does not exist. Chief responsible for the publication of the report is Sweden Democrat member of the European Parliament, Charlie Weimers. And we have Charlie Weimers with us from Brussels. We also have Dr. Tommaso Virgili, who is one of the two authors of the report and who is an expert on the Muslim Brotherhood and the spread of Islamism. Welcome, both of you.
Thank you.
If I begin with you, Dr. Tommaso Virgili, if you could tell us what is the Muslim Brotherhood and how do they pose a threat to our European way of life today?
Well, the answer to your second question is already in your first question. The Muslim Brotherhood is is a sort of a starfish, as we describe in the report, is not identifiable as one single organization, is a network of networks of different organizations that do not explicitly affirm they belong into the Muslim Brotherhood. They are linked by personal links, by ideological themes, and these ideological themes bring to the reason why they represent a threat, because their goal, despite their moderate means, their goal is the imposition of an Islamic state based on Sharia law. And they hide these goals through their supposed moderatism. And that's why they are a particular threat for our societies and for our societal cohesion.
And the fact that they hide, is that a conscious strategy? Do they know very well what they do?
They know very well what they do, absolutely. And it's a way to find their way in the Middle East to contrast the censorship and the persecution of dictatorships. But in Europe, it's a way to appease the liberal minds and the politicians, and so to find their way inside the mainstream politics and society.
Yes. And Charlie Weimers, why is this report interesting from a Swedish point of view?
Well, Sweden has its own problems with funding of Muslim Brotherhood associated entities. We have organizations such as Ibn Rushd, which is trying to portray an organization focusing on the education of people, while in reality being controlled by Muslim Brotherhood inspired individuals. So we have that funding. In Europe, we also have a funding of MB associated entities, and this is a real concern because funding also provides legitimacy. And this is what they strive for. They want to appear as the sole unique representative of Muslims in Europe. And they want to use its position to make Muslims distance themselves from the majority population, to identify as victims of what they call Islamophobia, which is, by the way, a word that we must stop using because it's a buzzword of the Muslim Brotherhood, trying to sort of remove all possibilities for a critical debate on Islam and Islamism.
Yeah, and Dr. Virgili, would you say that it's fair to say that the Muslim Brotherhood and its affiliated organizations support or try to legitimize jihad?
It depends on what level you ask me that question. If you ask me whether there is the smoking gun for Muslim Brotherhood linked organizations in Europe for support to terrorism, you will not find the smoking gun. At the same time, we have to remind ourselves that the Muslim Brotherhood is based on the ideology of Hassan al-Banna. Hassan al-Banna is the founder of the Muslim Brotherhood. In his letter on jihad, he clearly stated that jihad is a war word. It's not the spiritual struggle that some interpret. And Hassan al-Banna also say that wherever Muslims are in danger, they must fight and aspire to martyrdom. Now, what does it mean Muslims are in danger? You see how ideologues and organizations interpret this word. You will see Hamas, for example, targeting civilians. Hamas is part of the Muslim Brotherhood. It's the Palestinian branch of the Muslim Brotherhood. You will see Yusuf al-Qaradawi inciting violence against Israeli civilians or calling for jihad in different contexts, such as against Assad or against Shias. But you will also see that the way they interpret jihad and the way they interpret the threat is very ambiguous, because blasphemers, apostates, the cases of the drawings of Muhammad, those are also perceived as a threat, as a menace on Muslims. And that's why then we see those scenes of unrest worldwide when some drawings appear on a European newspaper.
Yes, thank you. And Charlie Weymers, how would you like to see that this report affects the debate in Europe and in Sweden on this issue?
Well, I would like for the European Union, Sweden, all its regions, all its municipalities to stop legitimizing, stop funding the Muslim Brotherhood, because the problem with the Muslim Brotherhood is not that it is a covert organization for jihad. The problem is that it's a non-violent organization using the freedoms of the Western world to undermine those very freedoms and our way of life. They want to conquer Europe not by the sword, but as they say, Yusuf al-Qaradawi, the figurehead of the Muslim Brotherhood, by dawah, spreading the religion, and by ideology. That's what they want to do, and they want to undermine integration and the social cohesion in our societies, putting people against people, and we must do whatever we can to stop that. And I hope that finally the EU will do its part to defend the European way of life.
Yes, okay, thank you both very much for your work and for sharing your time with us today. And thank you everybody for watching Riks.
Och tack så jättemycket för att ni tittar på Riks. Glöm inte att prenumerera på våran kanal genom att trycka på knappen här nedanför. Och om ni vill ha nya notiser om de videos som vi lägger upp, så tryck på ringklockan.